Okay, so picture this. You just got a $10,000 raise at work. You're pumped. You feel like you're finally getting ahead. So what do? You upgrade your car payment from $450 to $748 a month. Because, hey, you deserve it, right? You move to a nicer apartment, add a couple more streaming services, start ordering DoorDash 3 times a week instead of once, and then, 6 months later, you look at your bank account and realize
You have the exact same amount of money saved as you did before the raise, maybe even less. If that sounds painfully familiar, you're not alone. And what's wild is that this isn't even considered a mistake in our culture. It's just what people do, and that's exactly the problem. Look, I need to be honest with you right from the start. The middle class in America is getting absolutely crushed right now, and most people don't even realize how it's happening. According to recent financial outlook surveys, 32% of Americans think their finances will actually get worse this year, and 78% of those people blame it on inflation. But here's the thing, inflation is just one piece of the puzzle.
There are these hidden traps that are quietly destroying your ability to build wealth, and nobody's talking about them.
So today, I'm breaking down the 5 money traps that are keeping middle-class families stuck. And I'm not just going to tell you what they are. I'm going to show you the actual math behind why they're so dangerous, and more importantly, what you can do about it.
Money trap number 1 is lifestyle inflation, the silent wealth killer. Here's what most people don't realize. Getting a raise doesn't make you wealthier if you immediately spend that extra money. Let me give you some real numbers here. The average middle-class household spends about 52% of their income on essentials like housing and food. But here's where it gets really interesting. When you factor in debt payments, that number jumps to 66%. That means 2/3 of your paycheck is already spoken for before you even think about saving or investing. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Lucas, but what's wrong with upgrading my lifestyle when I make more money? Nothing, technically, but here's the trap. 1 in 3 Americans now admits that their lifestyle costs more than they actually earn. Let that sink in. And for younger people, it's even worse. 53% of Gen Z and 43% of millennials say their lifestyle costs exceed their income. The psychology here is fascinating and frustrating at the same time. When you get that raise, your brain doesn't think, oh great, now I can save $800 more per month. It thinks, I can finally afford that nicer car I've been wanting. And look, I get it. You work hard. You deserve nice things. But here's the brutal truth. Every dollar you spend on lifestyle upgrades is a dollar that's not working for you through compound interest. Let me show you what I mean with actual numbers. If you took that $10,000 raise, which breaks down to about $625 extra per month after taxes, and invested it instead of upgrading your lifestyle, at an average 8% return, you'd have over $750,000 in 30 years, $750,000. But if you spend it, you get a nicer car for a few years and then nothing. Money trap number 2, being house poor. This is where it gets really serious. Over 18 million American homeowners are what financial experts call house poor. That means they're spending more than 30% of their monthly income just on housing costs. And of those people, 44% are severely housing cost burdened. They're spending more than half of their income on their house. Look, I'm not anti-homeownership, but the traditional advice of buy the most expensive house you can afford is absolutely terrible guidance. The bank will approve you for a mortgage that will make you broke. They don't care about your financial future. They care about whether you can technically make the payments. Here's what this actually looks like. Let's say you make $80,000 a year. The bank will probably approve you for a mortgage of around $400,000. At current mortgage rates around 6%, that's a monthly payment of roughly $2,400 just for the principal and interest, not including property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. That's 36% of your gross income and over 45% of your take-home pay. Now, here's what most people don't realize. When you're house poor, you don't have money for the things that actually build wealth. You can't max out your $400,000. You can't build an emergency fund. You can't invest in index funds. Your house becomes this wealth-sucking machine where every dollar goes into a mortgage payment and you're one bad month away from serious financial trouble.
Money trap number 3, the emergency fund illusion.
24% of Americans have zero emergency savings. None. And it gets worse. Only 41% could cover a $1,000 emergency expense from their savings. That's down from 44% just last year. Here's the thing. Life will throw you curveballs. Your car will break down. Your kid will need emergency dental work. You'll have a medical expense. And if you don't have an emergency fund, you're forced to do what? Put it on a credit card. Take out a personal loan. And now you're not just dealing with the emergency, you're dealing with the high interest debt you took on to cover it.
The median emergency fund in America right now is $500. $500, that's it. And that's actually down from $600 last year. Even high-income workers contributing to retirement plans have seen their emergency savings drop from $25,000 to $20,000. Here's what's happening psychologically. People think I have my 401k. That's my safety net. But your 401k isn't liquid, and if you withdraw from it early, you get hammered with taxes and penalties. Or they think, I have a good job, I don't need an emergency fund. But then they get laid off or they have a medical emergency, and suddenly that confidence disappears. The math here is simple but powerful. You need 3 to 6 months of expenses saved, minimum. If your monthly expenses are $4,000, that's $12,000 to $24,000. I know that sounds impossible if you're starting from zero, but starting with even $1,000 gives you a buffer that prevents you from spiraling into high-interest debt. Money trap number 4 is the compound interest trap working against you. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Lucas, I've heard about compound interest. That's the thing that makes you rich, right? Yes, but here's what nobody tells you. Compound interest works in both directions. It can make you wealthy, or it can drown you in debt. Look, if you have a credit card balance, and let's be real, most middle-class families do, and you're paying just the minimum payment, compound interest is absolutely destroying you. Let me give you a real example. Let's say you have a $5,000 credit card balance at 20% interest, which is pretty standard. If you pay just the minimum payment of around $100 per month, it will take you over 7 years to pay off, and you'll pay nearly $4,000 in interest alone. You're essentially paying $9,000 for that $5,000 you originally spent. This is where it gets really interesting. That same force that's working against you with debt could be working for you with investing. If you took that $100 minimum payment and instead invested it every month at 8% returns, in those same 7 years, you'd have over $10,000. That's a $19,000 swing in your net worth. The middle class gets caught in this trap where they're using compound interest to make banks rich instead of using it to build their own wealth. And the psychology here is brutal. Paying off debt doesn't feel rewarding the way buying something new does. You're just making a number get smaller. But that number getting smaller is one of the most important things you can do for your financial future. Money trap number 5 is retirement sabotage. Here's a trap that doesn't feel urgent until it's too late, not investing enough for retirement. The average 401k balance in America is $148,000. That sounds okay, right? Wrong. The median is only $38,176. Half of Americans have less than $38,000 saved for retirement. And check this out. Even people who are 65 and older, people who are literally at retirement age, have a median balance of only $88,488. You know what that generates in annual income using the safe withdrawal rate of 4%? About $3,540 per year. That's not even enough to cover basic expenses, even with Social Security.
Now, you might be thinking, but Lucas, I contribute to my 401k. I'm doing the right thing. Here's the problem. The average contribution rate is only 7.7% of income. Financial advisors recommend 12 to 15%. That gap might not sound like much, but over a 30-year career, it's the difference between having $500,000 saved and having $1.2 million. Here's what's happening. People contribute just enough to get the employer match and they think they're done. But the employer match is just the starting point, not the finish line. And the psychology here is that retirement feels so far away that it doesn't feel urgent. But here's the brutal math. Every year you wait to start investing costs you massive amounts of money because of compound growth. If you start investing $500 a month at age 25 and you earn 8% annually, you'll have about $1.7 million at age 65. If you start at age 35, you'll have about $745,000, less than half. That 10-year delay costs you nearly $1 million. Here's what most people don't realize. You don't need to fix all 5 of these traps overnight. In fact, trying to do that is how people burn out and give up. But if you fix even 2 or 3 of them, the math changes completely.
Here's your action plan.
First, audit your lifestyle inflation. Write down every recurring expense and ask yourself, is this actually making my life better? Or is it just something I started paying for and never stopped? Second, if you have a car payment, finish it and never take one out again. Buy used cars with cash. Yeah, it sucks driving a less fancy car. You know what sucks more? Being broke at 65. Third, if you're house poor, you need to seriously consider downsizing or finding ways to increase your income. Your house should not be eating more than 28% of your gross income. Fourth, build that emergency fund. Start with $1,000, then get to 1 month of expenses, then 3 months, then 6 months. This is your shield against going into debt. Fifth, understand that compound interest is either your best friend or your worst enemy. Pay off high-interest debt like it's on fire and start investing as early and as much as you possibly can. Sixth, increase your retirement contributions by just 1% every year. You won't even notice it. In 30 years, it'll be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And seventh, cancel the subscriptions you don't use. Stop the mindless spending. Ask yourself before every purchase, will this matter in 5 years? Look, here's the thing. The system is designed to keep you stuck. Banks want you taking out loans. Car dealerships want you financing expensive cars. Social media wants you feeling inadequate, so you buy more stuff. The entire economy runs on middle-class people spending money they don't have on things they don't need. But you don't have to play that game. Every single one of these traps is avoidable. None of them require you to be a genius or to make 6 figures. They just require you to understand the math and have the discipline to do what's actually in your long-term interest instead of what feels good right now. And I know what some of you are thinking, but Lucas, what's the point of making money if I can't enjoy it? That's a fair question, but here's my answer. There's a massive difference between enjoying your money and letting it control your life. There's a difference between buying things that genuinely add value and buying things because you saw an ad or because you're trying to impress people you don't even like. Financial freedom isn't about being cheap. It's about having options. It's about not being stressed every time you check your bank account. It's about being able to retire with dignity instead of working until you physically can't anymore. These 5 traps have kept millions of middle-class families stuck for generations. But now you know what they are.
You know the math. You know the psychology. The question is, what are you going to do about it?
If this video helped you see your finances differently, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me which trap you're going to tackle first. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to them. Let's get as many people out of these traps as possible.